At exactly 2:37 p.m. on a cloudless afternoon in the Caribbean, the fire control radar aboard the Venezuelan missile cruiser Almirante Bion locked onto the USS Ronald Reagan. Not a tracking lock, not a surveillance sweep, a full weapons-grade targeting solution on a 97,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier operating in international waters. For 11 seconds, every alarm in the Reagan's Combat Information Center screamed warnings. 11 seconds where the line between posturing and warfare became razor-thin. 11 seconds that could have rewritten naval doctrine and sparked the first carrier engagement since World War II. The Venezuelan crew thought they were sending a message. They had no idea they just made the most dangerous miscalculation in their Navy's history. The Almirante Bion is Venezuela's flagship, a modified Lupa-class frigate that Caracas insists on calling a cruiser because it sounds more impressive. She was built in Italy in 1981, the same year MTV launched and Raiders of the Lost Ark hit theaters. Her anti-H-ship missiles are Odd-Mat Marks, subsonic weapons that were cutting-edge technology when Ronald Reagan was president. She displaces 2,500 tons. She maxes out at 35 knots on a good day with favorable currents. Her radar systems are analog. Her crew of 185 trains may be 4 months out of the year when budget constraints don't keep them tied to the dock. And someone aboard decided this was the vessel to challenge the Ronald Reagan. The Reagan isn't just bigger, she's a different category of warfare entirely. A Nimitz-class supercarrier displacing 97,000 tons at full load. 2 nuclear reactors generating 260,000 shaft horsepower. A flight deck covering 4.5 acres. An air wing of 64 aircraft capable of delivering more firepower than most national air forces. Her crew of 5,000 includes some of the most highly trained naval personnel on Earth. Her systems process tactical data from satellites, aircraft, ships, and submarines simultaneously, and her defensive capabilities are designed around one core principle: nothing gets close enough to threaten this ship without being detected, tracked, and, if necessary, destroyed. The Venezuelans were about to learn what happens when you point weapons at something the United States Navy considers untouchable. The first indication came at 237 and 14 seconds. Inside the Reagan's Combat Information Center, a senior petty officer monitoring the electronic warfare console saw the characteristic signature of an RTN-30X fire control radar. This wasn't passive surveillance. This was active targeting. The kind of radar emission that precedes a missile launch. The watch officer was at his station in 3 steps. Hostile fire control radar bearing 270, range 22 nautical miles. Designate contact Sierra 17 as hostile. No panic, just process. That's what thousands of hours of drilling produces. The ability to treat an act of potential warfare with the same professional calm as a routine training exercise. Within 15 seconds, the entire strike group shifted to combat alert posture. The destroyers USS Porter and USS Carney, positioned as pickets for the carrier, activated their Aegis combat systems to full readiness. Their SY-1D radars, already tracking the Almirante Bion, now painted her with enough electromagnetic energy to tell if the Venezuelan captain needed a shave. On the Reagan's flight deck, 2 FA-18F Super Hornets on alert status spooled their engines. Pilots strapped in, ready to launch within 90 seconds if the order came. Below deck, weapon stations armed defensive systems that most of the crew hoped would never actually fire. The Almirante Bion held her fire control lock for 11 seconds. Then it went dark. To understand why those 11 seconds mattered, you need to understand what a fire control lock means in naval warfare. It's not a polite request. It's not posturing. It's the final step before weapons release. It's a declaration that you've selected a target and are computing the firing solution to kill it. In any rational calculation, it's also suicide when your target is a U.S. carrier strike group. The Venezuelan cruiser carried 8 Odd-Mat missiles designed in the 1970s. These are respectable weapons, 450-kilo warheads, active radar seekers, sea-skimming flight profiles that make them difficult to detect until the final seconds of flight. Against a cargo ship or patrol boat, they're lethal against the Ronald Reagan, their target practice. The Reagan's defensive layers start 300 men are out with her air wing. FA here, 18 fighters equipped with A-120 missiles that can kill threats before they're even close enough to detect the carrier. Then come the Aegis destroyers with SM-2 and SM-6 missiles capable of intercepting targets at ranges exceeding 100 miles. Closer in, the Reagan herself mounts NATO Sea Sparrow missiles and evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. These aren't your father's defensive weapons. They aren't your father's defensive weapons. The ESSM can intercept supersonic sea-skimming missiles with a hit-to-kill precision that would have seemed like science fiction 20 years ago. And if somehow impossibly something got through all of that, the Phalanx close-in weapon system, 2 of them mounted port and starboard, autonomous 20mm Gatling guns that track, engage, and destroy incoming threats at rates of 4,500 rounds per minute. The system doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for orders. It sees a threat within its engagement envelope, and it turns that threat into a cloud of metallic debris. The 8 Ottoman missiles aboard the Almirante Bion would have faced all of this. Optimistically, maybe one would have gotten close enough to trigger the Phalanx. The rest would have died long before they saw their target. But here's the thing. The Venezuelans never launched. They locked their fire control radar, held it for 11 seconds, then went dark and turned away. So, what was the point? Inside the Reagan CIC, the tactical action officer pulled up the track history. The Almirante Bion had been shadowing the strike group for 3 days, maintaining legal distance in international waters, but staying close enough to monitor movements. Standard surveillance behavior, annoying, but legal. Then, at 2:37 p.m., she'd closed to 22 miles and lit up her fire control radar. The message was clear. We can target you. We're watching you. These are our waters. The American response was equally clear. Though it came through encrypted channels the Venezuelans would never intercept. At 2:39 p.m., the Reagan's captain sent a flash message through CENTCOM to the Pentagon. Subject line: Hostile Fire Control Radar Event Request Guidance on Escalation Protocols. The guidance came back in 4 minutes. It had been pre-approved at levels so high that admirals don't talk about them at cocktail parties. At 2:44 p.m., the USS Porter broke radio silence on an open frequency. She knew the Venezuelans were monitoring. Venezuelan naval vessel bearing 270. This is United States Navy warship. You are operating in international waters. Your activation of fire control radar against U.S. naval vessels is considered a hostile act under international law and the law of armed conflict. Any attempt to illuminate U.S. vessels with fire control systems will be met with immediate defensive action. You are advised to maintain safe distance and deactivate all targeting systems. This is your only warning. The message was calm, professional, the kind of tone you use when you're explaining something to someone who really should already know better. But everyone who heard it understood the subtext. Do that again, and we will sink you so fast your crew won't have time to abandon ship. The Almirante Bion maintained her course for another 6 minutes. Then, at 2:50 p.m., she turned to starboard and increased speed. By 3:15 p.m., she was 47 nautical miles away and opening range. The Reagan never deviated from her planned course, not 1 degree. The carrier continued her transit through international waters with the same unconcerned precision as a freight train on rails that studied indifference was itself a message. But the intelligence haul was significant. During those 11 seconds of fire control radar emission, every sensor in the strike group recorded data. The exact frequency of the RTN-30X radar, its pulse repetition rate, its scan pattern, the electromagnetic fingerprint that would allow American electronic warfare systems to identify that specific radar anywhere in the world. More importantly, they cataloged the Almirante Bion's electronic warfare posture, what systems she activated, when she activated them, and how her crew responded under pressure. Every piece of data was packaged, encrypted, and sent to the Office of Naval Intelligence, where analysts would spend weeks extracting every possible tactical insight. The Venezuelans thought they were demonstrating capability. What they actually did was hand over a complete manual on how to defeat their flagship. The cost analysis is brutal. Venezuela expended 0 weapons, but revealed electronic signatures worth millions in intelligence value. They demonstrated aggressive intent that justified continued U.S. naval presence in the region. They gave American planners a perfect case study in Venezuelan naval doctrine and decision-making under pressure, and they accomplished exactly nothing strategically. The Reagan didn't alter course. The strike group didn't leave the area. American patrol patterns in the Caribbean didn't change at all. Within 72 hours, Venezuelan state media ran footage of the Almirante Billon, with voiceover claiming their brave sailors had successfully intimidated an American carrier group. Propaganda for domestic consumption. The Reagan's logs told a different story. 0 course changes, 0 speed modifications, 1 tour radio warning, followed by absolute indifference to Venezuelan posturing. This is how modern naval confrontation works. One side makes an aggressive gesture. The other side responds with overwhelming technological superiority wrapped in professional calm. Nobody fires a shot, but messages are exchanged in radar emissions, radio warnings, and the cold mathematics of who can actually back up their threats. Venezuela wanted to prove they could challenge American naval power in their backyard. What they actually proved was that pointing 1970s-era missiles at a nuclear-powered supercarrier surrounded by Aegis destroyers is the nautical equivalent of bringing a knife to a drone strike. The Reagan continued her deployment. Her air wing flew scheduled sorties that evening. Her crew served dinner at normal hours. The incident was logged, classified, and filed in databases that will inform American tactical planning for decades. Some lessons are taught with explosions and wreckage. This one was taught with a radio warning and a complete refusal to be impressed. And for the crew of the Almirante Billon, that dismissal probably stung worse than any counterattack could have. They came looking to intimidate. They got a shrug and a professional warning that if they tried it again, they'd be swimming home. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit subscribe and share this video. Your support helps bring more untold stories of modern naval operations to